They didn't even look up. That was the part that stuck with me the most, how I stood there 3 feet from the polished table, where the $340 million contract was finalized, and not a single person turned their head. I held the flash drive that had sealed the deal still warm from my laptop's port. 10 months of drafting, revising, redlining, and defending every clause, and all I got was a paper cup of lukewarm coffee and a passing nod. Ronan Jett, the junior VP who'd been with the company for less than 1 fiscal quarter, lifted his glass. To Fallacy Systems' Q4 dominance, he cheered. He wasn't even facing me when he said it. His arm waved vaguely in the direction of the legal team, not that anyone could have distinguished who did what. He grinned like he'd slayed a dragon, but I was the one who built the armor, sharpened the sword, and cleaned up the blood before the cameras arrived. I left before the cake. At my desk, still tucked into the gray corner where the wall met the server room, I opened the contract dashboard. Timestamp confirmed, 10:47 a.m. PST. Execution completed. I should have felt something. Relief, victory, anything. Instead, I reached into my drawer, pulled out a granola bar with a faded expiration date, and ate it in silence. No messages, no congratulations. My Slack feed was filled with party photos and Ronan quoting business books like scripture. Someone wrote 340 Memler's baby on a whiteboard in the break room. I hadn't even been tagged. I checked the audit log, all clear, no anomalies. But I knew what was buried inside Appendix D7, the one no one ever read closely. Clause 49C, my clause. It had taken me years to build it, not the words, but the reason. The quiet knowing that systems forget the people who stabilize them. So I wrote a clause that wouldn't forget, a line of defense legal and digital that would trigger if someone altered the wrong thing. And then I opened the file again just to see it. Still there, waiting. That was the moment the message from HR arrived. Mailey would like to meet with you, Glassroom 3B. Clause 49C didn't come from bitterness. It came from observation. In year 5, Jamal was walked out 48 hours after finalizing a biotech deal that saved the company's entire East Coast pipeline. They didn't even let him say goodbye. Yvonne followed, restructured out after shielding us from a federal compliance review that could have bankrupted us. Then Priya. She gave up 4 weekends rebuilding our licensing architecture, only to be quietly demoted when a new VP wanted his cousin in her role. Every time it happened, I stayed quiet. Took notes. Then slowly I began to build. Not a weapon, not revenge, a failsafe, a pressure valve buried in legal concrete, labeled just vaguely enough to slip past scrutiny. I spent weekends studying audit frameworks and arbitration clauses, searching for patterns in corporate behavior, what they deleted, what they buried, what they blamed on strategic evolution. Clause 49C was a paragraph hidden in a footnote under Appendix D7 of high-value contracts. It looked like boilerplate. It wasn't. It was coded to activate if there was a material deviation in fiduciary treatment of directly named stakeholders' language no one ever questioned. In plain terms, if you cut my pay after I closed your deal, I pull the brakes. Not revenge, not sabotage. Just pause. The system would freeze execution, halt access, and route the contract through a third-party arbitration process. Not destructive, just paralyzing. Like locking the doors and pocketing the keys while the boardroom still thinks you're standing in the hallway. When I slipped Clause 49C into the Fallacy Systems contract, I wasn't angry. I was tired. Tired of building castles out of silence and watching others set fire to them without even knowing the names of the architects. So I wrote myself into the foundation, not loudly, not proudly, just undeniably. After the contract was signed, I reopened the clause. Read it slowly. My initials in the version history. Time-stamped, untouched. If they left it alone, it would stay asleep. If they triggered it well, it wouldn't be personal. It would be protocol. That's when the ping came in. Mailey from HR. Hey, Ellery, mine, stepping into Glassroom 3B real quick. The glass room, as we all called it, always smelled like artificial citrus and controlled disappointment. I followed Mailey inside without a word. 2 chairs, a box of tissues in the center like a dare. She didn't sit. There's been a strategic realignment, she began, voice light, almost apologetic. Effective immediately, your role has been reclassified as non-revenue adjacent. I stared at her. She smiled harder, as if the phrase she'd just said meant anything. To align with new compensation bands, she continued glancing at a folder in her hand. Your salary will be adjusted by 55%. There is no severance package, as this is not a termination, just a repositioning. She laid the folder on the table, one corner tilted toward me. We're confident you'll continue to thrive in this leaner model, she added, like she was offering a new flavor of yogurt. I flipped the folder open. Clean formatting, HR fonts. A signature line already filled in, mine replicated from a previous form. Can I get a full copy of the executed fallacy contract, I asked? Maylee blinked, caught off guard for a moment. Then her professional smile snapped back into place. Of course, I'll email the PDF by end of day. Anything else? I closed the folder. No. She opened the door like a host escorting a guest from a failed dinner party. Outside, the hallway buzzed with celebration photos being taped to glass walls. Ronan posed beneath a fake balloon arch while someone handed out cupcakes with company logos. I passed a cake that read 340 milliliters baby in gold frosting and returned to my desk. No one looked up. Back at my station, I opened the system dashboard. The audit log blinked quietly in the corner, status dormant. I pulled up the clause architecture, navigated to the contract node, and hovered my mouse over one line of code. Material stakeholder delta detected pending confirmation. I clicked once. The interface didn't stutter. No fireworks. No sound. Just a subtle change of status. Clause 49C trigger conditions met. The granola bar tasted like resignation, oats and some unidentifiable crunch dulled by time and indifference. I chewed slowly, letting the silence of my apartment settle around me, broken only by the low hum of my monitor blinking to life. I navigated to my encrypted drive, bypassed the biometric gate, and opened the contract ledger. The numbers were waiting. Payroll timestamp 2:13 p.m. Delta in compensation 55%. Stakeholder status active. Appendix A1 matched. The math was quiet, unemotional, but decisive. I pulled up the admin shell and entered the Command Ghost protocol ANIT. Nothing flashy. No alarms. The screen blinked. Once then loaded the interface I hadn't touched in almost 3 years. Status dormant. Evaluating. The script crawled through the system logs like a shadow under a door. I watched it move, checking clause indices, validating contract, hash confirming authentication logs against payroll triggers. Every entry returned green. Every signal aligned. Clause 49C alive and listening. I hadn't designed it to break anything. It didn't delete data or crash systems. It simply withheld access, execution, trust. A pause protocol wrapped in polite language and neutral verbs. Once activated, the contract entered a legal audit lock. Nothing delivered. Nothing integrated. No dashboards, no onboarding, no support. Just stillness until an external arbitrator could validate stakeholder harm resolution. And only I could initiate it. Not override. Not halt. Just start. I opened the server log one last time before bed. The trigger had reached final status initiated. Under system observation. The files hadn't frozen yet. The machine was just inhaling. I closed the terminal and let the quiet return. No pings, no Slack nudges. No one had noticed. Not yet. The kettle whistled behind me. Reflex, not intention. I poured water I didn't need, stirred tea I wouldn't drink, and sat at the kitchen table long enough to hear the system whisper confirmation in a single line of silent code. Audit protocol prepared, awaiting breach escalation. In the morning, they'd feel it. They just wouldn't know what it was called. By 9:06 a.m., the first ticket hit the help desk client onboarding portal, unresponsive. At 9:18, someone from the integration team flagged a persistent token refresh error. By 9:41, the dashboard interface, our holy grail for client visualization, stalled at the splash screen. By 10:15, the CTO blamed QA. QA blamed the middleware. Legal sent a quiet email asking if any recent permissions changes had occurred that might impact contract activation. The phrasing told me they were guessing, still trying to solve a fire with spreadsheets and shrugging. My Slack pinged at 10:22. Ronan Jet. Hey, quick. Q, can you check on the client dash? Think a patch didn't deploy right. Followed 30 seconds later by also congrats again on the deal. Total rockstar. I minimized the message. The server log window was cleaner, neater, more honest. The system was doing exactly what it had been instructed to do. I wasn't sabotaging anything. I was simply removing my breath from a structure built to collapse without it. By 11:04, a VP in sales asked if this was a license issue. Someone in DevOps started a Zoom call with 12 participants and 0 answers. Legal tried escalating to the platform vendor, only to be told that third-party audit locks were outside their override capacity. Clause 49C wasn't a kill switch. It was a memory device. It remembered what the company chose to forget, that the infrastructure wasn't made of tools. It was made of people. I leaned back in my chair and opened the audit interface again. Warnings blinked in soft orange now. Stakeholder Delta, verified, execution suspended, contract, PHX-714 status pending arbitration review. No one had typed my name, not in public threads, not in email, not yet. But I saw the pattern taking shape. Slack threads multiplying, meetings erupting, fingers pointing, and in the middle of it, a silence shaped like me. The kettle whistled again. I poured stirred, didn't sip. Just watched as the performance log ticked upward. Frozen delivery packets, unreadable token chains, queries timed out. I refreshed the dashboard and saw the phrase I'd hidden there years ago blinking in soft gray system status, provisional integrity hold. At 1:42 p.m., the client's legal liaison sent an encrypted email marked urgent. Subject line notice of performance suspension, PHX-714. They'd invoked the correction clause 72 hours to restore access, verify contract integrity, and confirm fiduciary alignment, or the entire $340 million agreement would be voided. I read it twice then, once more for punctuation. Every sentence bled restraint. They were already angry but still pretending to be patient. At 2:11, CEO Finn Colgrave summoned what he called a coordinated response roundtable, which was code for panic in suits. The war room filled with department heads, consultants, legal product, and someone from investor relations who looked like she hadn't slept since funding round C. The call started with hollow optimism. Ronan stammered something about dashboard latency, and the CTO speculated on unexpected OAuth decay. Finn wasn't buying it. His voice cut through the noise like a warning siren dressed in a Harvard accent. This isn't latency. This is deliberate. Someone's locked us out. That's when a junior compliance analyst, Priyesh, who'd once shadowed me for 3 weeks, cleared his throat. I think it's clause 49C. The room went quiet. Finn blinked. Klaus what? Pritesh hesitated, then tapped his laptop. It's buried in the D7 appendix of the new deal. Legal audit trigger tied to stakeholder compensation deltas. It's signed by Ellery Voss. Someone actually laughed, a short disbelieving puff. I imagined the moment they all turned to the empty chair where I wasn't sitting. Who approved that Finn asked? No one answered. I wasn't on the invite, wasn't even on the building floor plan anymore, but I was still in the system, every fiber of it. While they scrambled to decipher the clause, I closed my laptop and stood, stretched my arms, and opened the window. The cold came in fast. In the background, my terminal displayed a quiet countdown labeled Resolution Window, 71 hours, 12 minutes remaining. I folded laundry in silence, each shirt pressed with the rhythm of someone who wasn't rushing and didn't need to. The kettle steamed again in the background, but I didn't move. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. Just precise. At 6:03 a.m., the internal contract validator failed. At 6:15, financial relays stopped processing. At 6:47, the integration service logs threw a new flag critical. Handshake, timeout security token, chain invalid. The logs had stopped whispering. They were shouting. Slack lit up like a slot machine. Someone from DevOps asked, "Did we trip a license kill?" An onboarding manager responded, "Is this why client data won't import?" Then finally, a private message from Bryce Harwood, Director of Strategic Accounts. Bryce.hh, "Hey Ellery, super sorry to bug you on a Sunday, but the client's really freaking out. Could you maybe peek at the validator module real quick?" Bryce, Deutsche, just a tiny temp override. "We're trying to calm them down." I didn't reply, just hovered over the message until it marked as read, then minimized the thread. Instead, I opened my personal audit archive. 10 years of records performance reviews rewritten post-promotion to justify bonuses skipped. Budget reallocation memos that raised executive pay while cutting team benefits. A redacted NDA I'd been handed in 2019, accompanied by a post-it that said standard language, nothing scary. It had a non-disparagement clause that could bury a whistleblower in debt. Every file was already labeled. Every folder dated. I didn't forge anything. I just kept what others hoped I'd forget. I zipped the entire structure and queued it in the third-party neutral review portal. It wouldn't upload until I confirmed, but it was ready, fully documented, fully traceable, fully mine. Back in Slack, the public channels had gone quiet. Panic wasn't loud anymore. It was clinical. Everyone waiting for someone else to blink. The dashboard still displayed the countdown. Resolution window 53 hours 44 minutes remaining. At 9:31 a.m., I uploaded the audit file. The system took less than 2 minutes to verify the package and begin notification dispatch. Every executive named in the documents, every person who'd signed off on realignment, received a certified alert that legal discovery had begun. The email subject line was clean, professional, devastating, contractual audit action. PHX Sven144. By 10:07, the CFO announced he'd be stepping down to focus on personal priorities. At 10:22, the CTO changed his LinkedIn headline to exploring new opportunities and removed the company name from his work history entirely. At 10:39, the head of legal requested a one-on-one Zoom call with me through the audit portal's messaging system. I didn't accept. At 11:12, the CEO's assistant sent me a voicemail marked personal. Finn's voice was soft, syrupy, and desperate. "Ellery, hey, just wanted to say we've always valued you. Always. Let's find a path forward. I think if we can just get in a room, no pressure, we can fix this." I deleted it mid-sentence. Fix this, they'd already fixed it. They just hadn't read the instructions taped to the underside of the bomb. At 11:58 a.m., the official termination notice came through from the client. No ceremony, no delay. Just a single-page PDF with bullet points and firm language, due to unresolved verification lapse and failure to restore access. Integrity Project PHX714 is hereby dissolved. Funds will be reallocated effective immediately. Future engagements are suspended indefinitely. And just like that, 340 million vanished from their pipeline. I sat back and let the moment wash over me, not triumph, not gloating, just stillness. There was no alert, no bang. Just the kind of silence that settles in the center of a building the moment the foundation gives out. The systems wouldn't crash. They would stay up humming empty like a cathedral with no congregation. I checked the audit portal. The countdown had stopped. The window was closed. Clause 49C executed. They didn't implode with fire. They eroded in silence. The back end never recovered. Contract verification flags stayed red. Partner dashboard stalled in splash loops. Internal permissions remained tangled in audit logic. Nobody could override the freeze, not without the keys I never offered. By Monday, 3 vendors had terminated support contracts. One issued a public statement referencing critical lapses in compliance infrastructure. The investors followed suit by Tuesday. Words like gross negligence and governance failure flooded the air like a carefully worded obituary. I watched from my new apartment, a studio in the Mission, with a view of a grocery store awning and enough quiet to hear the kettle when it hissed. I drank my tea slowly like I had time again. Ronan posted a LinkedIn update that began, "Sometimes disruption starts at home," and ended with a stock photo of a man hiking into fog. Comments were disabled. The company page removed all references to the Fallacy Systems contract. Their client list shrank overnight. My Slack login expired at some point. I didn't check exactly when. At 7:12 that evening, I received a message on my personal inbox. No subject line, just a sender named KM Talent, Helix North Systems. The body was short. "We know what you did. We're not mad. We're impressed. Would love a conversation when you're ready." I didn't answer. Not yet. The tea was still warm. For years, I'd written the infrastructure others stood on. They passed it off as process. I knew it was cathedral work, delicate, immense, invisible, not sacred but enduring. And now finally I'd stopped patching cracks in stained glass they never looked through. I folded the blanket on the couch and stood to stretch. The corner of my laptop glinted from the desk. A new message pinged. Another recruiter. A second offer. The headlines had made their rounds. What they finally understood, what no one had asked until too late, was that I wasn't part of their system. I was the condition it ran on. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the oppressive kind, the kind that comes when things are finally aligned. My new office wasn't sleek or sharp-edged. It was warm, deliberate. A soft hum of people typing the occasional laugh. Down the hall, someone wheeling a whiteboard with no panic in their step. It wasn't built for appearances. It was built to work. My badge had my name printed clearly, with no title beneath it. Just Ellery Voss. It was the first time in over a decade that I didn't need an acronym to prove I belonged in a building. The CEO met me at the door, a woman named Jessa Morell, who didn't pretend not to know the story. She handed me a cup of coffee and said, "We don't care how loud you are. We just care that the foundations hold." Before I could thank her, she added, "Ever consider cybersecurity?" I took a sip and smiled. Let's call it revenge consulting. They handed me my first file before lunch, a contract with a startup in genomics, clean but naive. It was too trusting of good intentions, too open to quiet exploitation. I spent the afternoon rebuilding its spine. I inserted 3 safety catch clauses, a silent trigger, to notify internal counsel if a stakeholder's compensation was altered mid-project, and rewrote the arbitration fallback to require full disclosure of executive bonuses. By the next day, the legal team had already pinged me with a note. "This is ruthless. We love it." My inbox now greeted me like a colleague, not a siren. There were no late-night pings, no crisis meetings, marked just 5 minutes. People waited when I needed time. They listened when I explained a clause. At home, I finally unpacked. For years, my apartment had looked like a staging area, books half-shelved boxes labeled later. Now my desk held only 2 things, a notepad and a small plaque someone from HR had left as a welcome gift. It read, "Not every firewall is made of code." I kept Clause 49C in my archive, annotated and intact. I never expected to use it again, but I never deleted it either.